There's a version of me that died on a rainy Tuesday night, kneeling on wet concrete outside a restaurant I used to love, holding a torn photograph in one hand and a folded note in the other. He believed that loyalty was a two-way street. That if you gave someone everything, your time, your trust, your future, they'd at least have the decency to give you the truth. He was wrong, and it cost him everything to learn that. But here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't just break you. If you let it, it rebuilds you into someone the old version of you never could have been. This is the story of how one lie ended a 4-year relationship, and how one decision ended her ability to ever do it to anyone else. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why I don't hate her. I just don't trust her, and that's worse for her than hate ever could be. 3 years ago, I would have told you I had the perfect life. My name's Daniel. I was 31, running a small but growing design studio I'd built from a laptop in my college dorm room into a 12-person agency with real clients and a real office downtown. It wasn't easy. There were years I ate cereal for dinner because I'd rather pay a contractor than pay myself. But it was mine. Every brick of it, I'd laid myself. And then there was Sienna. I met her at a mutual friend's gallery opening. She was laughing at something on her phone, completely unaware that half the room was watching her do it. And I remember thinking, that's the kind of person I want to build a life with. Someone who doesn't perform for an audience. We dated for a year before she moved in. 2 more before I started looking at rings. She was sharp, funny, ambitious in her own right. She worked in marketing for a hospitality brand, climbing fast, always talking about the day she'd run her own boutique agency, just like I had. I believed her. I believed in us. We had inside jokes. We had a whole language built out of 4 years of shared mornings and late-night arguments about nothing and apologies whispered into the back of each other's necks. We had a future that felt so solid I never once thought to check if the floor was real. That's the thing about trust. It's invisible right up until the moment it's gone, and then it's the only thing you can see. It started small. It always starts small. Her phone, which used to sit face up on the kitchen counter while she cooked, started flipping itself face down. A habit she picked up so gradually, I couldn't even tell you the week it began. She started working late, twice a week, then 3 times. When I'd ask how her day went, the answers got shorter, vaguer. Fine, busy, you know how it is. I didn't know how it was, because I ran a business too, and busy seasons are real. So I didn't push. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that 4 years of trust doesn't evaporate because someone's tired and stressed. There was a name that started showing up, though. Marcus. A client, she mentioned once, then twice, then in a tone that had just slightly too much warmth in it for someone she supposedly only spoke to about quarterly marketing budgets. I asked about him once, casually, over dinner. Marcus? He's just a vendor contact. What? No reason. You mention him a lot. Do I? She laughed it off, refilled her wine, changed the subject. I let it go. Because here's the ugly truth nobody likes to admit. When you love someone, you become an expert at building reasons not to see what's right in front of you. I didn't want to be the paranoid boyfriend accusing his partner over nothing. I wanted to be the man secure enough to trust her. So I trusted her, right up until the night the floor finally gave out. It was a Thursday. Sienna had told me she had a team dinner running late, a client wrap-up event for a hotel launch she'd been managing for months. Normal enough. I'd heard about this project for weeks. I was working from home that night when her phone buzzed on the couch cushion beside me. She'd left it behind by accident, rushing out the door that morning in her usual chaos. I almost ignored it. I want you to know that. I almost let it buzz itself quiet and went back to my spreadsheet. But it buzzed again, and again, 3 times in under a minute. The kind of urgency that doesn't come from a coworker asking about catering numbers. I looked. Tonight's going to be fun. Can't wait to finally have you to myself for a few hours. Tell Dee you'll be late. I booked the same room as last time. Miss you already. I sat there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds, staring at 3 lines of text that quietly dismantled 4 years of my life. Tell Dee you'll be late. Dee me. I wasn't paranoid. I was being managed. I scrolled up. There was a thread going back 19 weeks. Hotel confirmations. A nickname for me, Dee, that I'd never once heard her use to my face, like I'd been reduced to an inconvenient character in someone else's story. 19 weeks. That's not a slip. That's not a moment of weakness after one too many drinks. That's a second relationship built in parallel to ours, with its own routines and its own private language. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone across the room. I just sat very still and felt something in my chest go quiet in a way it had never gone quiet before. Then I picked up my jacket and I drove to the restaurant where her team dinner was supposedly happening. I didn't go in. I waited outside, across the street, under an awning, because some part of me, some small, stubborn, hopeful part, still wanted to be wrong. She came out 40 minutes later, not with her marketing team, with him. I crossed the street. Sienna. She turned, and I watched 4 years of careful performance collapse in real time. The color left her face. Daniel, what are you? I thought you were. Working late. Team dinner. I know. I read the texts. 19 weeks. Sienna. Was I supposed to find out on week 20? Or were you never planning on me finding out at all? She didn't deny it. She just stood there in the rain and said, it just happened. For 19 weeks. I laughed. Not a real laugh. The kind that comes out when your body doesn't know what else to do with the pressure building behind your ribs. Things don't happen for 19 weeks. Sienna, you built this. You built an entire second life, and you let me keep building ours next to it like nothing was wrong. Marcus said nothing. He just stood there like a man waiting for a meeting to end so he could go home. And that, somehow, hurt almost as much as her silence did. I looked at her one more time. Really looked. Searching for the woman I thought I knew. And what I found instead was a stranger wearing her face. I gave you loyalty, I said. You gave me betrayal. I turned around and walked into the rain before she could answer. I didn't need an answer. I already had it. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting on the curb 2 blocks from my apartment in the pouring rain because I genuinely couldn't make my legs carry me any further. I pulled an old photo out of my wallet, her laughing into my shoulder, me looking at her like she was the only stable thing in a spinning world. I held it in the rain until the ink started to bleed and the image of us started to blur into something unrecognizable. I tore it in half. Not dramatically. Quietly. The way you close a door on a room you know you're never going back into. Then I wrote in my notes app, because some part of me needed to see the words exist outside my own head to believe they were true. I gave you loyalty. You gave me betrayal. We are not the same. Here's what nobody prepares you for in the immediate aftermath of betrayal. It's not just grief for the relationship. It's grief for every version of the future you'd already built in your head. I stood up. I went home. I packed a bag for the night and left before she got back, because I knew if I stayed one more hour, I'd let her talk her way back into my chest the way she'd talked her way into everything else. One goodbye saved my peace. I made sure it stuck. I crashed at my business partner Theo's place for the first week. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell most of my friends what had happened. I needed time to understand what I was dealing with before I let anyone else's opinions get tangled up in mine. Sienna called 19 times in the first 3 days. Texted close to 60. I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me. It meant nothing. I love you. Please, Daniel. The cruelest part of betrayal is that the person who broke you still expects access to you while you heal. I gave her none of it. By the second week, I started noticing details I'd missed in the fog of the initial shock. Marcus wasn't just some random hotel contact. He was the general manager of the hotel chain Sienna's agency had been courting for an exclusive year-long marketing contract. The same contract she'd been working late on for 19 weeks. The same contract that, if signed, would have made her career. This wasn't just an affair. This was an affair and a conflict of interest that, if her company's leadership knew about it, would torch the credibility of the entire deal she'd built her professional reputation on. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built her entire big break on a foundation of exactly the same dishonesty she'd used to manage me. One lie shattered my trust. But one lie, it turns out, rarely travels alone. I want to be clear about something. This isn't a story about hacking anyone's accounts or doing anything illegal to get even. What I did next, I did with information that was already sitting in plain sight. I wasn't just her boyfriend. For the past year, my design studio had done freelance branding work for her agency on a handful of hospitality clients. I had email threads. I had project files. I had a signed vendor conduct agreement, one she'd had me sign, that explicitly prohibited undisclosed personal relationships with client-side decision-makers. because her firm took their hospitality contracts extremely seriously after a previous scandal. She had made me sign a document about exactly the kind of behavior she was now committing herself. I didn't go digging through her personal accounts. All I had to do was quietly put together a timeline using publicly available information, and the dates on messages I'd already seen with my own eyes, unprompted, on a phone she left on our couch. Theo finally asked the question I think he'd been holding back for 2 weeks. "What exactly are you building here, man?" "I'm not building anything," I said. "I'm just organizing the truth so it can't be argued with." Because here's the thing about people who build their lives on deception. They don't usually need someone to destroy them. They just need someone to stop covering for them. 3 weeks after the rain, Sienna's agency held the official launch event for the hotel partnership. Investors, executives, press, the whole production. What I did was something far simpler and far more devastating than crashing a party. I forwarded the vendor conduct agreement, the one with her own signature on it, to the one person whose opinion actually controlled her career. Her agency's founder, Patricia. I attached nothing inflammatory, just the agreement and a brief, professional note explaining that I'd become aware of a conflict of interest involving a member of her team and a key client contact, and that I felt obligated, as a vendor who'd also signed conduct documentation for this same account, to make sure leadership was aware before the partnership moved further. I sent it the morning of the launch event. Patricia pulled Sienna aside 20 minutes before the official signing. The contract didn't get signed that day. Marcus was quietly removed from the deal's point of contact list within 48 hours. And Sienna was taken off the account entirely. I didn't destroy her career. I just stopped being the only person willing to lie for her. Word travels fast in small industries. Within 2 weeks, the story had been sanded down by office gossip into something simpler than the truth, but the core of it stuck. Sienna got pulled off the biggest account of her career because she was sleeping with the client. She lost the account. She lost the promotion that account would have guaranteed her. And she lost Marcus too, who it turned out had a wife back in another city he'd conveniently never mentioned to her either. She wasn't his exception. She was just his current rotation. She texted me again, once, about a month later. "I heard what you did. I know it was you who sent that to Patricia. I lost everything because of you." I wrote back the only thing that felt true. "You didn't lose everything because of me, Sienna. You lost everything because of what you did for 19 weeks before I ever found out. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences you built yourself." She never responded to that. People love to talk about revenge like it's a single explosive moment. But the most effective revenge I've ever witnessed doesn't look like an explosion at all. It looks like removal. It looks like simply refusing to keep absorbing the cost of someone else's dishonesty so they can keep functioning in a world that thinks they're trustworthy. I didn't ruin Sienna's life. I just stopped being the only thing standing between her and the natural consequences of the life she'd already built without me. One lesson made me stronger, and the lesson wasn't really about her at all. It was about me, about how easily I'd talked myself out of trusting my own instincts for months. My studio grew that year, not because heartbreak makes you magically more productive, but because for the first time in a long time, all my energy belonged to me again. About 4 months after that night, I packed up the last of her things into a single box. I didn't write her a letter. I'd already said everything that needed saying. One decision. I never looked back. That's not a metaphor. It's a habit. Every time my mind drifted toward replaying that night, I made a decision, consciously, to redirect my attention towards something that belonged to the life I was actually building. It got easier every time I chose it. I dropped the box off at her new place. No note, no need for one. And I drove home in the kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. The kind of quiet that just feels like peace. A year after that night in the rain, my studio hit a milestone I'd been chasing since the day I started it. Our first 7-figure year. Somewhere in the middle of that rooftop celebration, I thought about that version of me on the curb in the rain, and I realized something worth saying out loud for anyone sitting in their own version of that rain right now. Betrayal doesn't just take something from you. For a while, it feels like it takes everything. But if you let it, and if you're patient with yourself, it eventually gives something back, too. It gives you clarity about exactly what you will and will not accept moving forward. I heard, secondhand, that Sienna eventually left the industry entirely. New city, new job. I genuinely hope it's going well for her. I mean that. But I don't hate her. I just don't trust her. And the difference between those two things is the entire point. Hate keeps you tethered to someone. Not trusting someone requires nothing from you at all. It's not a wound. It's a closed door. She betrayed me once. That was all it took. If you've made it this far, maybe you're sitting with your own version of this story right now. I'm not going to tell you to go dig through anyone's messages. I'm not going to tell you that suspicion is always justified. But I will tell you this. If the truth ever does find you, don't spend your energy trying to destroy the person who hurt you. Just stop protecting them from what they built. The truth, left alone, is usually punishment enough. One lie shattered my trust. One choice showed me who she really was. One goodbye saved my peace. One lesson made me stronger. One decision, and I never looked back. I gave her loyalty. She gave me betrayal. We were never the same. And I'm grateful every single day now that I finally let that difference be the end of the story, instead of the reason I kept rewriting it in her favor.